At the time of writing this, it's been a month and a half since the second season of the Swedish series Young Royals dropped, and I'm finding it difficult to move on. I know whatever series I watch next will seem bad by comparison, a problem I suffered from after watching other favorite series of mine like Breaking Bad, Mr. Robot, The Wire, and 6 Feet Under. When this happens, I fulfill my lingering obsession by listening to interviews with the creators of the series and watching analysis videos created by other fans, mentally comparing their critical analyses to my own. What's different this time is that the auxiliary media I've come across for the series I'm currently stuck in an obsession hole of tends to focus on only one aspect of the series, the romance. While the main relationship plot of the series is laudable and a crucial part of the story, it's far from the entire story. It pains me to see so many other aspects of the show go unrecognized for the obvious hard work, thought, and care that went into them, so I've decided to make my own little video to show some love and appreciation for the rest of Young Royals. My hope is that this might also serve as encouragement to those who haven't seen the series already to give it a shot, as there's a lot to love, especially if you, like me, are a fan of stories with political machinations, social commentary, scheming, tough choices, or moral ambiguity. It doesn't hurt that the show also boasts nuanced dialogue, masterful narrative writing, excellent acting, beautiful camera work, and great music. This video will include mild spoilers, as few as I can get away with while still talking about certain aspects of the show I think deserve praise. If you want to avoid spoilers altogether and go into the series knowing next to nothing, like I did, I suggest turning off the video and turning on Young Royals on Netflix. As I watched Young Royals, I thought of it as a mix of Skam, Succession, and I Told Sunset About You. Skam is a Norwegian dramedy about several teenagers from a high school working through interpersonal and broad social issues. Succession is an American dark comedy about the members of a wealthy family running a media conglomerate and vying for power over it. I Told Sunset About You is a Thai coming-of-age romance drama about two young men navigating their relationship amidst their academic and career pursuits. All three series are excellent, and I eventually heard Young Royals was indeed partially inspired by Skam and Succession. It's less comedic than either, but it still has its moments of humor.
Dödsstraff.
Ja, eller nej.
Ja, säger vi.
Young Royals takes place largely at a prestigious boarding school, steeped in tradition, populated mostly by the teenage children of high society. Our two main characters are unconventional students at this school. One, Simon, comes from a working-class, single-parent immigrant household and is frequently at odds with his upper-crust classmates. The other, Wilhelm, is a prince of Sweden. As you might expect, the most prevalent social issue addressed in this series is class.
Simon är klassresan förkroppsligad.
While Simon faces discrimination and difficulties related to his limited resources, Wilhelm's parents suspect he's not fit to be a leader due to his mental health and behavioral issues. If you look closely enough, the series reads as a critique of monarchy. In effect, it highlights the absurdity of monarchy as a system of government, not only for logistical reasons, but also ethical ones. The scenario presented in the show implicitly raises questions about the unsettling relationship to eugenics, and whether it's humane to raise a child to be a political leader. Young Royals gives new meaning to the phrase "the personal is political," as Wilhelm's position as a member of the royal family imbues his coming-of-age experience with repercussions for the government of an entire nation. Sadly, Young Royals is working against widespread prejudice against shows about teenagers. Unlike most such shows, though, the teenage characters of Young Royals actually behave like teenagers, rather than adults in a high school setting. In fact, the story works precisely because its characters are teens, who are at a stage in human emotional development when insecurity is at an all-time high, and we care deeply about what others think of us.
Jag klipp mig.
In many ways, this is a story that has to take place during the teenage years, when people are old enough to be strategic, but young enough to be impulsive and naive. It's a time when we make high-stakes decisions, but lack the life experience to anticipate broad or long-term consequences. It's a time when we develop and assert our independence, but are manipulable by adults, or even people just a few years older. At only 6 episodes per season, not a moment is wasted, and every element is meaningful. Much of the specific dialogue and behaviors are improvised, making for a naturalistic tone, yet this is balanced against tight narrative writing where every action taken by every character affects every other plot and character. The threads are woven together seamlessly, and everything that happens matters. Take, for example, this moment in the first episode when Simon visits his father.
Jag skulle behöva få hjälp med en grej.
Okej.
Jag vet att du köper ut. Alla vet. Och jag skulle behöva för en fest. Alltså ring inte till mig. Men jag dricker inte.
Ja. Jag minns hur det var när man skulle impa på någon tjej.
Jag är gay, pappa.
Ja, förlåt. Snygg kille då.
In just this brief exchange, we learn that Simon is gay, he's open about it, and probably has been out for a long time, and he has a distant relationship with his father, which is awkward, but not hostile. This moment even carries emotional weight, as we see his father's desperation for a good relationship with Simon, and how his attempt at bonding with him backfires by showing Simon that he's forgotten basic information about him. We've only just met these characters, and yet they're already breaking my heart. This is how exposition is done. I can't get over the sheer efficiency of this scene. It goes without saying that this moment also progresses the plot, affecting Simon's relationship with his father, with Wilhelm, with August, and with Sara. For the most part, the series is not filled with bombastic moments, but relies more on realistically subtle interactions like this one. Some of my favorite scenes in the series are ones in which the viewer is trusted to read between the lines along with the characters, to emotionally devastating effect. An example of this, also with a rhetorical backfire, is when Wilhelm attends his first mandated session with a therapist.
En sak ska kronprinsen veta, och det är att allt som ni säger här inne, det är konfidentiellt. Och som ni märker så för ju inte jag några anteckningar överhuvudtaget. Det enda jag rapporterar till dina föräldrar är om du har varit här på utsatt tid eller inte.
Okej. Så jag behöver inte prata?
Nej, om ni inte vill prata så behöver ni inte göra det, nej.
Okej, bra.
The therapist reassures Wilhelm that the information he shares in the session is held in the strictest confidence. Wilhelm correctly deduces that this is an effort to get him to talk about the particular trauma he's avoided mentioning. Since that trauma is the violation of his privacy on a grand scale, the fact that the therapist already knows about it without Wilhelm having told him only deepens his trauma, serving as yet another painful reminder of the extent to which his privacy has been violated. The last thing he wants to do is divulge even more about himself. The therapist's attempt to get Wilhelm to open up to him only drives him further into his humiliation, resentment, himself, to the point that he stops speaking altogether. You may have noticed a theme that runs through both scenes, aside from my heart being broken. It's a theme that runs through the entire series, in fact. This series is in large part about the control of information, and this concept permeates everything. Control of information appears in all its forms, from press interviews to social media posts, gossip, revealing truths, suppressing and controlling narratives, invading privacy, and of course, keeping secrets. This series has got secrets on secrets. It's got secrets about secrets inside secrets. Just about everybody in Young Royals is hiding something, and much of the plot revolves around people's secrets being revealed or protected. We can't help but feel some pity for the young elites, for all their privilege and power, as we see the lengths they go to cultivate an image or maintain a facade. The series depicts the control of information as directly tied to class, and membership in the ruling class entails discretion and secret keeping.
Men här är ibland Ulrika. Du skulle kunna mörda någon och ingen skulle säga ett ord. Nej, jag lovar.
It's even suggested a few times that relationships between the societal elites and people from lower socioeconomic classes can't work precisely because of the mismatch in valuing secrecy. The series also ties tradition in with the control of information and class hegemony as a sort of three-pronged theme, showing the interplay among them all and how all three enforce and are enforced by one another. Never is this connection manifested more clearly than when Wilhelm is initiated into his school's secret society, an all-male group of students descended from nobility who swear to preserve the families of historical wealth. To qualify for membership in this exclusive club, called the Society, you must be male, wealthy, and loyal to the monarchy. The Society's obsession with secrecy, tradition, and protecting class hegemony seems extreme, but is merely a distillation of the culture of the school, and of upper-class society overall. If anything, membership in the Society drives Wilhelm further away from its ideals, as he ends up calling Simon, the antithesis of all that the Society stands for, to come rescue him from the fallout of his initiation. Contrast that experience with the occult cleansing ritual performed by Madison and Felice, which is so welcoming and open that Wilhelm stumbles upon it by accident and is immediately invited to join. It's an obvious break from tradition in that it falls outside the Christian brand of spirituality the school adheres to, but we also get a nod to its non-traditional nature by seeing Madison reading the ritual's instructions off her phone. It's also interesting to note how this contrasts with the deeply unpleasant hazing process Wilhelm undergoes when he joins his school boarding house. The boarding house initiation and the Society initiation are male bonding rituals that involve things like crawling through mud and polluting the body with toxins, whereas Madison and Felice engage in a female bonding ritual that Wilhelm happily participates in and which is intended to release toxic energy and purify oneself. Simon and his sister Sara are set apart from their peers both due to their disparity in socioeconomic status, as well as their honesty and openness. Unlike everyone around them, they're clearly not in the habit of hiding much. They even have a pact to keep no secrets from each other. While Simon and Sara hail from a world based in honesty and transparency, they become embroiled in the high society world of lies and secrecy Wilhelm and Felice were raised in. Sara, having autism, has difficulty distinguishing when it's socially appropriate to withhold information. However, as she strives to emulate her peers and becomes absorbed into her new social environment, she becomes increasingly prone to keeping secrets. Simon is defined by his honesty and genuineness right from the start. His emotions are easy to read on his face, he readily expresses his opinions, no matter how unpopular, and he doesn't bother with perfunctory politeness. Simon's distaste for secrets, keeping them and being one, persists throughout the series. When he does make an attempt to hide something, his attempt is feeble and unconvincing. Even Simon's greatest passion, singing, is a representation of this aspect of his character. What could be a more fitting hobby for him than one that's all about loud self-expression or potential embarrassment in front of a crowd? Simon also stands in opposition to the other two prongs of his school's culture, tradition and class division. His preference for honesty and openness is itself a subversion of tradition. His refusal to entertain false pretenses and formalities is a great example of this. Simon as a symbol of reform is especially stark when he zealously throws himself into rearranging and rewriting the school anthem into a more modern rendition. As part of his flagrant disregard for tradition and hierarchy, he demands inclusion in spaces traditionally reserved for the upper class, from the school itself to extracurricular activities to social functions, and sometimes he even brings his fellow non-aristocrats along with him. He addresses his high-status peers, even the prince, with his signature bluntness, challenging the culture of falsity, tradition worship, and hierarchy all at the same time. Naturally, this makes him a social pariah at the school, but it also makes him uniquely appealing to Wilhelm, who secretly harbors beliefs and values similar to Simon's.
Jag ska inte yttra mig politiskt.
His alliance with Simon is an affront to tradition, not just because of who Simon is, but also because of all that he represents. Wilhelm is caught between external pressure to uphold tradition and his own desire to escape it. We see that for him, as well as many of his aristocratic peers, tradition, dishonesty, and maintaining status are a prison. Felice is a product of high society culture as well, and starts the series engaging in the same deceptive practices as many of her classmates. She presents a false image of herself to the world, altering her appearance, lying about her hobbies, and socializing with ulterior motives. However, as her friendship with Sara grows, so too does her affinity for truth. She stops straightening her naturally curly hair. She becomes more forthcoming and honest about her feelings and experiences, and she even dedicates herself to finding out and exposing a critical secret. She also begins to eschew the other two values in the thematic trio, tradition and social domination. To her parents' dismay, she abandons traditions and prestigious roles her parents have pressured her into. There are two positions her mother urges her to pursue to elevate her status even among her high society peers: the Lucia at the St. Lucia Festival and Wilhelm's romantic partner. However, Felice ultimately upends both tradition and the established hierarchy by ceding both of these positions to not just anybody, but members of the working class. Once she realizes she doesn't genuinely want either role for herself, she becomes fully supportive of Sara as the Lucia and Simon as Wilhelm's partner. While Sara wants to live in Felice's world, Wilhelm wants to live in Simon's. As if they've switched places, Sara first stays over at the school with Felice. The same night, Wilhelm first stays over at Simon and Sara's house with Simon. Throughout the 2 seasons, all 4 characters undergo transformations and negotiate their values, spurred on by their relationships with one another. With these themes in mind, I can't wait to see in the show's 3rd and final season what narratives will be spun, how characters will wield their power over information, and what will become of the monarchy. I personally am hoping to see Wilhelm dismantling the monarchy from the inside. Whatever happens, it's safe to assume, judging by the first 2 seasons, I have more poignant and intelligent storytelling to look forward to.